My husband wants to leave me, and it's all because our baby was born with special needs. Yeah, he's that heartless, and now he's running off to marry his mistress. Well, I'm not gonna have it. I'm coming after him for full child support, and just so you know, there's a lot of money involved, and I'm gonna try to take it all. And you guys can witness this.
I've read many stories up here where people just sort of let it all out. So I thought maybe I could get this off my chest too. I'm 35 female struggling with family life, even though I love my husband and son very dearly. See, after giving birth to my baby, I was just absolutely overwhelmed with joy. But then the doctors told us our son had special needs. It had never been predicted or warned in any way. We attended regular checkups and everything, but nothing unusual ever showed. I felt like it was my fault. Maybe I had done something wrong during pregnancy. Maybe it was something I ate or some medication I took. You know, the guilt was crushing me and I was struggling with it for a bit. I had to get used to the fact that my son would need a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The first few months after our son was born were a blur. I was exhausted all the time, constantly worrying about his health and future. I would stay up late reading about his condition, trying to prepare myself for what was to come. You know, in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had failed him somehow. I know it's irrational, I know, but that guilt sticks to you, man. See, my husband, let's just call him Matt, was absolutely no help. I don't know if I'm making up things because I've been that emotional and vulnerable, but it feels like I've been in this alone from the get-go. He was always distant, more interested in his work and hobbies than in our son or me. He had this way of disappearing into his own world, spacing out during casual conversations, and just straight up neglecting what I asked him to do for the family. Matt would come home from work and barely acknowledge us. He would ask about dinner, maybe play with his phone, then disappear into his office. Meanwhile, I was dealing with the doctor appointments and the baby who needed me almost every second of every day. I kept hoping he would step up to the plate, that he would see how much I was struggling and offer some support. Maybe I wasn't communicating well enough, I don't know what the problem was. But the worst part of it all was that Matt kept pushing for a second kid. It was like he thought having another baby would somehow fix everything. I was barely holding it together with one child, and the thought of adding another to the mix was unimaginable. Every time he brought it up, I felt a lot of anger and sadness. I told him again and again, I couldn't do it. I want to focus on giving our son the best life. I'm still learning to be a better mom to a child with special needs. My baby only got his first wheelchair less than a year ago, so he's still getting used to it and he needs a lot of help. I can't imagine doing all this while pregnant, but Matt never listens. He would pout and sulk, acting like a child himself, and his constant pressure only made things worse. I felt more alone than ever. It's hard to explain the depth of the loneliness. It's not just being physically alone, it's feeling like you're the only one in the world who understands the weight that you're carrying. So, a few months ago, during a conversation with a friend, I realized that I might be suffering from a mental illness. I remember we were sitting in her kitchen and I was venting about how hard things have been and how I felt like I was falling apart. She just looked at me and said, "Have you thought that maybe you're dealing with postpartum depression?" It was like a light bulb going off in my head. Of course, I had heard of it, but it never occurred to me that it could be what I was experiencing. See, I thought just the stress of having a child with special needs, the lack of support from Matt, and the sheer exhaustion of it all. But when she said it, it made so much sense. Eventually, I sought help. I've been going to therapy for almost 2 months now. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I admit that I could not handle it on my own. I felt like I was a failing mom, a failing wife, and a failed person. But I knew I had to do something. I needed to be there for my son, and I couldn't do it if I was falling apart. Honestly, therapy was an absolute lifesaver. Just having somebody to talk to, somebody who listened without judgment, was such a relief. My therapist helped me to see that it wasn't my fault and that I hadn't done anything wrong. She gave me tools to manage my anxiety and depression, and slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Well, guys, last week, I decided to start a small business. It sort of became an escape for me. I'm selling crochet and handmade products that are positive and friendly to wheelchair users. It was something I could do from home, something that gave me a sense of purpose and accomplishment. Plus, my son loves the things that I made for him. In fact, he's been my biggest inspiration. Last week, I made him a dinosaur plushie that can double as a wheelchair accessory. He loved it. It wasn't easy balancing everything, but it was something for me. Something that made me feel useful and appreciated. You know, I didn't tell Matt about therapy right away. Not because I want to keep a secret from him, but because he's been going on the business trips a lot. I feel like it's a huge thing for me to discuss the possibility that I might be dealing with a mental illness. So, I was just waiting for the right moment. Last night, I finally found a good time to talk to Matt. He had just gotten back from one of his business trips and was sitting in the living room, scrolling through his phone. Our son was asleep and the house was quiet, and I started by explaining how much I was struggling and how therapy had been a lifeline for me. I needed him to understand that I could not do it alone anymore. But as soon as I mentioned therapy, his face twisted with irritation. He accused me of wasting his hard-earned money. I tried to make him see how his absence and lack of support were affecting me and our son, but he didn't seem to care. He was more concerned with the money and how things weren't going the way he had planned. He even talked about wanting a normal family, whatever the hell that means. Hearing him say that made something inside of me snap. He didn't care about our son. He saw our situation as a burden rather than reality to embrace. I continued to confront him about his lack of care for our child, but he didn't offer any apologies or solutions. Instead, he suggested that maybe it's best if he just left. It was like he was relieved to have an excuse to walk away. His last words, and I quote, were, "So, you also have special needs now, huh? This is too much for me." Then he just exited the conversation and casually went to bed. I don't know what he meant when he said it's best if he just leaves. I don't know if he's thinking about divorce, but I am. I've been holding on to hope that he would step up and become the husband after the father, we needed. But the hope it's gone. I sat there feeling a mix of anger and straight-up fear. I stayed up the whole night, and I don't know if this is going to be the end of my 6-year marriage. It's been one whole day, and I still don't know what to do. My husband and I have not talked to each other since the conversation. What would you do if you guys found yourself in my shoe? Update number 1. I just want to thank you guys to the ones who left the comments. It really meant the world to me, and I was just hoping to update you guys with some good news. But the last few months have been very messy. After the fight with my husband, I agreed to temporarily live separately. We both needed a bit of space, and he gave me some money to move out of his apartment with our son. It was not an easy transition, but I managed to find a small, cozy place for us. Fortunately, that's when things began to improve a little. Therapy, it helped. I could see a future again, one where my son and I could be happy and healthy. I began to feel more like myself, more capable and hopeful. My business took off around this time. A friend of mine posted about me and my son, and that video went viral. She also helped me open a few social media accounts, and I'm learning to use them, but it's been fun. There were moments of joy. Our son was brilliant in his own way, and he's been painting since he was 3. But ever since we moved out, he has had much more space to practice his craft. I set up a whole mini studio for him. I bought him a new art supply with the money that Matt gave me. His creativity is shining bright, and we managed to get into a good elementary school on a scholarship for unrepresented group. His talent was painting because it was a source of immense pride. I started selling his art in my online shop, and people loved it. It was a huge relief to see his work appreciated, and it brought in so much needed income. I know this all sounds really nice, and I'm grateful for it, but it does not end here. See, just when I thought we were finally finding our footing, Matt dropped a bombshell. He wants a divorce, and his reasoning, now that things were looking up, I didn't need him anymore. He said he wanted to be happy and finally live his life, as if the life that he had with us was just a draft or something. It was such a slap to the face. The timing felt like a cruel joke, and after the struggles, just when I thought we were getting better, he decides to just straight up abandon us, huh? So, I agreed to the divorce. There was no reason for me to stay. I was ready to stop going to therapy to save up more money now that I can't be financially dependent on Matt. So, I signed up for social media management courses. I was ready to do whatever it takes to give my son a better life and leave the past with my husband behind. He didn't seem to care at all, but that wasn't even the worst part. When I unexpectedly showed up at his company to get his signature on the divorce papers, I saw him leaving with his boss in the middle of the day. Curiosity and a nagging suspicion got the better of me. I followed him. It didn't take long to uncover the truth that he's been having an affair with her, probably for years. So I followed them to a very nice house in the burbs. There was a garage and a garden, and it's a good neighborhood. Of course, I couldn't stay there for long. I returned home and came up with a plan. I contacted a realtor in that area, found a reason to visit the place, and asked around about the neighborhood. The chatty realtor accidentally revealed to me that the family who's living at my husband's house includes a 2-year-old boy. It was another slap in the face for me. He's probably their child. My husband has already lived this life that he wants. He's just waiting for an opportunity to break it to me. It was like my whole marriage had been nothing more than a lie, an utter lie. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and alone. All those years of feeling inadequate, this was the reality behind it all. He had always been the one at fault. Honestly, I'm not sure what to do now. It's just occurred to me that my husband might not want to pay for child support now that he has a family of his own to take care of. My business is going well, but it's still so young. I'm just concerned about whether or not I can afford to raise my son alone. I'll let you know what happens. Update number 2. Hey guys, it's me. Yeah, I'm back for another update. Well, guess what? 2 weeks have passed, but some of you have asked me a lot of questions, so I thought I should clear the air. First of all, being a stay-at-home mother was not a decision I made lightly. I believed it was best for my son, and when we discovered that he had special needs, I knew that he required more attention and care than we initially anticipated. I wanted to be there for him to ensure that he had the best possible start in life. My husband, Matt, and I agreed that I would stay home to provide the care while he continued to work. Staying at home is hard work, and some of you forget that. I wasn't neglecting to look after our son. My husband was. He's the one who agreed to be the financial provider, and he failed miserably at being a dad, a husband, and a decent man. It's easy to judge from the outside, but unless you've walked in my shoes, you can't fully understand the challenges and decisions I've had to make. My primary concern has always been my son's well-being, and that includes financial stability. I'm not just sitting around at home, I'm managing our household and providing the care and support my son needs. Second of all, I could not have seen the affair coming. Of course, there were signs. His mistress was his boss, a rich older woman who had always been condescending towards me whenever we met at company events. She would make these really weird comments, making me feel bad about my fashion choice or how I do my hair. She acted like I was absolutely beneath her, and now I know why. But nothing would have prepared me for the fact that she's not just seeing my husband, but raising a child with him. I would have never expected a woman with that much money and power to settle with a married man. Who the hell does it? Plus, taking care of my son takes a lot of time and energy out of my day. I don't sneak around and go through my husband's phone. If I had the time, I would just sleep. If you can't be supportive of me, that's fine. But don't put the blame on me. I don't cheat, I don't lie, I only do things that I think are best for my child. With that being said, standing up for myself is also what's best for me and my son right now. I wasn't going to let my husband and his mistress get away with it. I started by consulting with a lawyer, laying out everything I've discovered. Unfortunately, we need more evidence, and I don't know for sure if there is indeed a child because I didn't see him with my own eyes, so I do have a lot to do at the moment. I'll be sure to update you once this unravels a bit. Please try to be kind and understanding here. I really appreciate it. Update number 3. Hey, I have a few important updates this time. A lot's happened in the last few months, but things are looking up. I'm hopeful that this whole mess will be over soon. So the situation with my husband and his mistress are very complicated. They know they're in the wrong, so they have done practically everything they can to hide their secrecy. When my lawyer and I investigated a little further, we found out some very interesting information. It turns out that the 2-year-old boy might not be my husband's biological son. See, I'll admit I'm not particularly proud of the way that I found out about this. Oh no. I practically followed his boss around in a rented vehicle and got to the nursery that they're sending the 2-year-old to. I had to ask my friend to take my son to school for a week, just for this purpose. Anyways, I found out where they're sending the child and pretended to be a curious parent. Paying the nursery a friendly visit, I found an opportunity to interact with the 2-year-old just for 1 minute, pretending I was mistaking him for the son of a friend and stole a tiny strain of his hair. Yep, I did. We conducted a DNA test, and the baby and my son are not related in any way. So that is not my husband's child. And when I think about it, it does make sense. I was wondering why his boss would settle with a man like him. Maybe she desperately wants a father figure for her child. It's all so upsetting. But of course, that means there's less evidence and Matt actually had an affair. If the child is his, a DNA test is enough proof. But he could potentially deny having any romantic relationship with his boss at all. See, I want to make sure our rights were protected so that Matt could not simply walk away unscathed. The lawyer assured me that we could build a strong case. We just need a bit more evidence of the affair. So honestly, I was not sure what to do. I could go to court, but I didn't know if it would be a smart decision, so I didn't have a strong enough case yet. At the same time, I was wondering if I was spending too much time on all this. I wanted to give my son the best life. I just wanted things to end quickly, so I could go back to living. But before I could decide, my husband did something that really sealed the deal. Oh yeah, he introduced his boss to his friend and family. I found out about this because one of his friends called me to ask if I was okay. Apparently, some people didn't even know that we were separated. The divorce was not final yet, but he was eager to start a new life. I was livid. So, I filed a lawsuit and I'll keep you updated, but this is going to be a tough time for me, so please try to be kind. I'll try my best to write as soon as possible. Update number 4. Hey guys, when I wrote the last update, I didn't expect it would take me 8 months to write again, but here I am. So last time I was here, I had filed a lawsuit against my husband and fought tooth and nail for what I deserved. You know, in my state, adultery's a felony, so I was trying to get them convicted, but they were smart. First, they claimed that there was no affair, but I've had their realtor testify that they were seeing the house with each other, proving a special relationship between them. Still, they insisted on denying it. They went as far as claiming that if there had been an affair, it happened in another state, so they should not be convicted in any case. This is because the house that they're staying in is technically in another state line. They thought that they could outsmart the system and walk away unscathed, but I did not back down. I knew the truth, and I was determined to make them face it. Taking out a loan to hire the best lawyer I could find was a gamble, but it was a necessary one. I needed a team. I poured every ounce of energy into building my case. We gathered evidence, meticulously piecing together the timeline of their affair. Then it occurred to me their affair must have started in the workplace. So we bribed the security guard and got access to the cameras. It turns out they had previously bribed him to delete everything, but he secretly kept a copy. He said they sounded sketchy, so he just wanted to keep an eye on it. We paid twice as much for the footage. I feel like TMZ. And we got it there, and there was one scene where my ex pulled his boss into the men's bathroom. That should be enough to dismiss both of their claims, and in the end, I won $300,000 in damages, plus $60,000 a year in child support. The financial security that this victory provided was nothing less than a relief. But it was also about to stand up for myself and my son, proving that we would not be discarded or disrespected. But I'm not going to stop there. Matt and his boss might have a thought that they could carry on with their lives without consequences, but I have other things. I heard that they're getting married at the beginning of next year. They have tried to sweep the affair under the rug, but I wasn't about to let them start fresh without any repercussion. I found a reporter willing to take on my story. It didn't take much convincing because everybody loves a scandal, especially one involving a high-powered executive and a secret affair. I bribed him, making sure that they had all the details and the evidence of their deception. The affair, the secret child, everything. I'm just waiting for the wedding now. It's kind of fun, to be honest. Final updates. A lot of you have commented and texted me about what happened next, but I haven't had the time to write anything. A lot's happened in the last 4 months. I think I'm ready to wrap this up now. Basically, my husband and his boss were aiming for a private wedding. Not a lot of people attended, so the reporter had more reasons to write about the affair as if it were a secret crime. Well, it is, to me, Maybe not legally, but morally. The story broke, and it was a huge disaster. Headlines splashed across websites, social media, dragging their sordid details into the public eye. My husband was soon fired because they violated company policy, and obviously it's not ideal to go work and then have an illicit relationship with your boss in the company space. I guess the company tried to ignore it at first, but as soon as the public finds out about it, they have to act. My husband is terribly good at taking advantage of the situation. He requested that the child support be lowered now that he has been fired, but what he didn't expect was the public was on my side. They floored my store's page, absolutely flooded it, asking about how things have been for me and my son. They were enraged that my husband didn't even want to pay for the child support. They were absolutely so mad. The company's stock was dropping like crazy, so much so that they were the only two options left. They would fire my ex's new wife and would agree to keep the child support at $60,000. Of course, the next thing that went was the second thing of the plan. So now, the mistress would have to pay for my child since my ex was still off of work with a felony on his profile. It would be tough for him for a while, but I guess that's none of my issue anymore. Now it's just for me and my son. I've learned that I'm stronger than I've ever thought possible. I'm focused on my son and our future. The money from the lawsuit and child support provided a financial cushion, but I knew I couldn't rely on it indefinitely. I wanted to focus more on growing my shop and creating a stable, fulfilling life. I got back to therapy a few weeks ago too. I realized that keeping myself healthy is also an important task in making my son just have the best life. I was determined to be the best version of myself. Anyways, guys, thank you for helping me out and listening.
Guys, I want to know what you think about this comment. Do you agree or not? It says, sorry. But as a mother, I feel terrible for the boss's 2-year-old. He did nothing wrong. What the OP did was borderline creepy and weird. I understand that's what you thought should be done, but he's just an innocent child. He shouldn't have to suffer because his mom and stepdad did something terrible. I hope they protect their child's privacy, and with his parents being publicly shamed like that, it's hard for a child to develop healthy habits. I don't know, I just feel bad. Do you guys agree with that perspective or not? Drop it down below and let's discuss it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day, and I promise you never know what to expect. Mother-in-law dramas, in-law dramas, inheritance dramas. I mean, it goes on and on forever. Some of my favorite are HOA stories, homeowner association. You can find a lot of Karens. Guys, drop your thoughts down below. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.